hey, y'all. Welcome back to the podcast. Pastor Joseph, glad to be with you and delighted to have the Sanders family here, at least half of the Sanders family, for Steven and Terese Sanders, church members, fellow adoptive parents. You'll get to hear a lot more about their journey and all of these things, but delighted to have y'all here on the podcast to talk about family and Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Well, as we do every time in the Advent podcast, anytime, we're sort of doing some introductions to who these folks are, how they got here to our church in this community, and a little bit about themselves. So, which one of you would like to go first in introducing yourself a little bit for our listeners and watchers?
I'm Steven. I'm originally from a very small town in western Kentucky. I've been in Atlanta for 20 plus years, and we've been married since 2013.
I'm Terese Sanders. I'm originally from St. Louis, came to Atlanta to go to Emory, and then I stayed. And I've been working in entertainment since then. And, we joined the church. I can never remember if it was 2015 or 2016. We
attended for a couple of years before we actually became members.
Yeah, we've started, coming here when it was just the two of us, and a lot has changed since then.
Yeah. Well, that's how things work. I used to joke in working with young adults and college students, people start partnering up, and then there's kids and all the things, and job stuff changes. We age and grow and learn, and our families expand in sort of different ways. One of the things I love about our church here at Oak Grove is, again, our values are, working on our inclusivity and helping people connect with each other, growing in their faith and living out their faith in the world. And a big thing that I see that I love about our church here is all the intergenerational ministry things that we have. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about sort of your experience with some of that in the church, sort of things you're involved in here maybe would help people sort of understand a little bit where they might see you and find you on a Sunday morning or on a Wednesday night, that sort of thing. So tell us something about what y'all do here at the church and what you love about Oak Grove.
So we started out, I think even before we joined the church, we did Disciple. And so, that was a real mix of people, right?
And it's a 34-week class over the course of a year where you go through the entire Hebrew Bible and New Testament and a cohort group. And those classes start up every fall. So if you're interested in that, hang on, and we'll get back into some disciple classes in the fall. Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it because I grew up Catholic. And so even though I went to Catholic school for kindergarten through high school, I hadn't really studied the Bible. And so it was kind of a great overview for me. So especially if you're kind of new to the Methodist Church or have been away for a while, it's kind of a good way to get back into that. And then we joined a covenant group after we had joined the church. But I've been in the choir, and so that keeps me busy on Sunday mornings and Wednesday evenings and other especially during the holidays. We come to midweek with the kids, and they go now to each of their choirs. And then, Stephen's been able to go to a lot of the lectures. And
yeah, those have really been interesting. Pastor Beth, Pastor Amy, different topics, just kind of chatting, really not like a lecture so much as more like the kind of conversation you would have at a dinner party, like, well, what do you think about this? And it's really enlightening, and not the kind of conversations I've ever had with pastors before. Really kind of laid back, and I think this, what do you think about that? That kind of thing. So really, really enjoy them.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And I know you mentioned the kids, and we'll get into some more of that. Again, I've got 2 kids. Y'all have got 2 kids. We've experienced life in some similar ways. And I love seeing y'all at Wednesday night dinner. Wednesday night dinner here at Oak Grove. Once we start back in the spring semester, we'll start back with dinners. And we have a delightful chef, Chef Allison, who makes great food that I don't have to cook or clean. And so that's a huge benefit. But then also there's programs and choirs for children and for adults and Bible studies and all sorts of things during the week. There's also a 5 p.m. midweek worship service that happens throughout the year anytime, even if there's not dinner that night. So a really neat thing and super helpful for folks in the neighborhood, and especially for those of us with kids and trying to get here after work and make dinner work together.
Great to think on Wednesday afternoon, oh, great, I don't have to cook tonight. Don't have to clean.
I don't always make it. Traffic is not always my friend, but, I usually get to see everybody and say hi, at least before whatever is the next activity is happening. So,
Yeah, during the pandemic, you all were both involved in the sort of outdoor drama production. During the pandemic, we were trying to figure out how to figure something out to get people to experience Holy Week safely. And so you all were both part of that multi-site production all the way around the church that was something you experienced in person. And also we filmed it a couple of days before to get those experiences for people. So yeah, I'm glad for y'all's work in the church, and you're jumping in on whatever activities we're up to, as well as the music and other things y'all help do at the church. That's really neat. Well, it's great to hear about how you all are involved in the life of the church here and the ways you find belonging and meaning making, as well as some activities for you and for the kids. I know that Christmas and Advent have all of the things wrapped up in them. All of our experiences previously and our experiences now, and then the ones we're going to have later in life. But I do want to hear a little bit about what makes Christmas Christmas for you and for your family.
You know, there's a couple of traditions that that I grew up with that we've brought in somewhat a little bit. Like, we always had an Advent wreath. We always lit the candle. My mom, we would always do the candles every Sunday. I was a little late this year because of being sick and everything, but we got our candles out this past Sunday, and you know, Anthony was just very excited about the candles at this time. And, you know, listening to Christmas music or watching programs like my dad always, you know, Pavarotti singing, Come All You Faithful. And but something that we did, even when we were dating, is, you know, we always went out and did one kind of Christmas event, whether it was we went to the Nutcracker or went to a Christmas Carol. And when the kids came to live with us, we always had kind of wanted to take kids to see a Christmas Carol. So, you know, the first year we took Layla and we went with another family. And last year we did Rudolph. This year we did the Botanical Gardens lights. So just trying to have something special each year that we can, you know, that, and it's trying to find something we can all do together, right? Something that's age appropriate. One of the great things, when we went to the Botanical Gardens, was that we went with my family that was all visiting for Thanksgiving, most of them anyway. And it was the first time we were able to get all the first cousins together. So my brother has 2 kids, my sister has a daughter, and, you know, we were able to line them up, height order, you know, from 25 to 5 and get a picture. And it was just, you know, they'd hung out before, they'd met before, but now they were all officially cousins.
I always enjoyed going to a show at Christmas, and when it was just us, you know, it was a fun date night thing to do. But now, taking the kids, it's even more special.
Yeah. Well, music and family and all these things I hear sort of go together for you all, and for our church family. That's a huge part of the life of our church here. Are there some things that that make Christmas or Advent for you all here at Oak Grove?
Well, I mean, I love the Christmas concert every year. And you know, I always did a little bit of singing, but like, I think I got most into it in college. And at Emory, they always have the Festival of 9 Lessons and Carols. And they kick off the same way with Once in Royal David City. So that's, you know, I was like texting with some of my college friends, like, guess what we're doing, you know, and oh, I know that descant, and, you know, a little bit of that back and forth. But so I just love that. And it's been a little different this year because Layla was a part of it. And that was really fun that we got to, you know, spend that time together, that, you know, she was a part of it. And I was saying, I really look forward to us continuing to do this in a few years. Anthony, hopefully we'll get to do it. And, you know, it's a great way to kick off the holidays.
That's a neat thing. And the Christmas concert, we did stream the Sunday 6 p.m. That was a couple of days ago. You can go find it on our YouTube channel if you're interested in watching it and listening to it. Our team did a great job producing it. And y'all were amazing with bells, choirs, kids choirs, brass quintet. It was quite a production.
And talk about intergenerational. I mean, you know, from 3rd grade to, you know,
I think almost 90 is what I'm trying to think of.
Long retired.
Sure.
In the concert, there's one song where all of the choirs sing. It's Climb to the Top of the Highest Mountain, right? Yeah. And it's the last anthem that all the choirs sing. And then we close with a congregational song. But, and we've done it at least a couple of years. And I was always struck when, it has this big swell and then just the children sing. And they say, he will love the little children. He will hold them in his arms. It always struck me, right? It's just thinking about especially foster children and children in need, right? Yeah. And this year, I just got chills hearing it because my child was now in that group singing. And it just took on I just had a new appreciation for it. And I just loved it.
Well, and that's a huge part of how our church does things, but also that's neat to hear that that's such a meaningful thing from your experience at Emory with the 9 Lessons of Carols and the Once in Royal David City. John Cowden talked about that on the podcast a few weeks back. It's just really a beautiful thing for a lot of people. Yeah.
I love the Christmas Eve service as well. It's something that I grew up with in my family, going to every year. And something about Christmas Eve at church, the lighting of the candles is so, meaningful. So it really is. And doing that with two children can be a little, a little more, make it a little more interesting, but it's still just, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I have memories as a kid. I was in Boy Scouts, so I loved fire. I mean, this is normal, right? It's normal, right? But even still, there's something so powerful about that analog, tangible. Yes. I'm holding a piece of wax with a string in it and trying not to burn myself with it. I mean, there's something
we still do this
meaningful about it because it loops us back into traditions and years of people doing this.
Right.
All the way back. In the early days of the church, when they would have worship services, they would carry the light of Christ, the Phos Hilaron, out of the tomb from which the stone was rolled away to have the worship services up above. And there's this ancient hymn of the Phos Hilaron, of the light coming forth. And you can see echoes of that even now in our traditions of lighting candles for sacred occasions. But on Silent Night, when we sing that together and people are sharing that light of Christ, I wholeheartedly agree. That's one of my favorite and most touching moments. Yeah. And I think that's one of those things that these experiences we have in church or in worship, especially around these high and holy seasons, it can change us and transform us in meaningful ways. I love you sharing about sort of your experience of knowing that one of your children was there singing those same words with you, and it sort of caught you at a moment. And part of the podcast today is about family and how that makes Christmas. And I know for your family and your journey, I'd love for you to share a little bit about sort of how you became the family you are, but then also how we'll come back to it on the back end of how Christmas is different now than it was a couple of years ago. But we'd love to hear some of that.
Well, so, we've been married now 10 years, and we became foster parents in 2019. We had a long stretch of phone calls that didn't work out for placements. And it was about this time in 2019 where I was about to leave work and I got a call for this, this child, and we said yes. And on my way home, I got the call saying, no, they've already found a placement. And we're like, okay. And so we're just kind of a little disappointed just that it had happened so many times. And then late that night, 11 o'clock, we get a call from the same person. And I guess it's because we had said yes, so they knew we were open. And we got a call for twin toddlers. And they had siblings, and they had also called the Hardy family.
Yeah, and that was a church family that was fostering as well. The remarkable thing of having a couple of foster families here, that both of y'all got activated into sort of that same cohort that's kind of wild.
Yeah. And so there was kind of like a lot of back and forth, but they said yes, and we said yes, and so we got these placements and it was a crazy whirlwind. The toddlers actually ended up only staying with us for 36 hours. Yeah. So it was an emotional roller coaster.
It really was.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't get hardly any sleep, and we had to take them to the doctor. It was just...
We had to go to the doctor the next day, to court the next morning. It was...
Yeah. And so they ended up going back with their parent but the other kids stayed with the Hardys for like 6 months, I think. It was an emotional Christmas, right? Because you kind of thought, oh, we might have some kids in our house, and then we didn't. We had a respite right before the pandemic, and then we provided respite care, and then we had a placement in 2020. But she actually went home right before Christmas.
Right. She was with us about 7 months and was reunified with her mom a couple of days before Christmas.
Yeah. And we and that was the plan, and we knew it, and it was the right thing to happen. But it was still kind of a strange feeling, like, okay, But then in 2021 was our first Christmas with the two children we were fostering, who we've now adopted, and completely different experience, right? I mean, it's just that Christmas morning excitement is off the charts, right?
Yeah, there's no comparison as a couple versus as
I mean,
four on Christmas morning.
We used to spend a lot of our Christmases was traveling, right? Going to see family in St. Louis or in Kentucky. And then if it was just the two of us, like, we would watch movies on Christmas Day, right? Because we'd gone to church on Christmas Eve, and we'd just watch movies and hang out and pet the dogs, and so it's quite different now.
Well, and I can identify with much of y'all's conversations about foster care and adoption. Again, for all the things that you go through when you're adopting or fostering, if you get a call and it might be a placement and then it doesn't work, or it does work for a minute and then it doesn't. For the fostering y'all did was through Well Root Family Services, which is the United Methodist agency in Georgia that does all this great work in foster care. We're adoptive parents in our family for our two girls, and we found our birth mothers and birth families through Methodist Church Connections and Facebook, and then through the website we had built. But the number of calls you get that don't work out, or that they don't get placed with you, those can be trying and challenging. And so for a lot of folks who are listening here, I know if you've got friends who are doing foster care or who are adoptive parents, just know, you probably already know this, that it's quite a journey. And so I appreciate you sharing that part of things, because it's, often in our stories of faith, we don't sugarcoat all the parts and pieces, right? Without the death of Jesus, there's no resurrection. In any story, anyone's life, all of the parts belong. The good, the bad, the suffering, the joy, all of that's there, right?
Yeah. And I mean, obviously we always wanted to keep the bigger picture in mind, right? I mean, we hate that we even had to get a call, right? But it's, you still have to also acknowledge that all of these emotions that you go through as you're getting the call and making the decisions, and then, if it doesn't happen, or you just don't know. There's so much uncertainty that you just have to go along for the ride.
So much that you can't control, and it can just take you on a roller coaster ride.
Yeah. And I know that's challenging for any family or duo. My wife and I have talked about this a lot of years, being on the same page and figuring things out and communication, all that part of things. But also then, now that there's the four of y'all, plus the dogs, how many dogs?
3.
Okay,
dogs.
3 dogs. Bless y'all. But also, like, what a joy, what fun, the contrast and juxtaposition of one Christmas up against the next. And this year, are things looking different or about the same with the energy levels for Christmas?
I mean, I think there's, lots of activity, lots of things going on, lots of excitement. Our elf has returned. Rosie is here. And we also welcomed my mother to live with us this year. So she moved in with us in August. And she was actually visiting at Christmas. So she was here for Christmas last year, but only for like a week.
Sure.
And so now, she gets to be a part of all of this. She came to the concert. She doesn't, go out and do a lot, but I really wanted her to come to that. And
The whole multi-generational thing going on
in our house.
Yeah.
People ask me who's joining our church, and it's often people sort of in our demographic who are in their careers, both working full-time and have kids. And then it's the grandparents coming to move closer. That's about 70% of the folks who are joining our church here, because that's what's happening in our neighborhoods, but also what's happening in our lives. So the church being multi-generational, intergenerational in its very fabric and how we do things makes complete sense. For people to find their place, both as individuals and as family units in whatever shape or flavor families might become. It's really neat to see that. That's now you're in one of those intergenerational families. But that's beautiful. And for all of our kids growing up with grandparents and aunts and uncles and those unofficial aunts and uncles that are not by blood or marriage, but by just choice, are a huge part of how we're able to accomplish all the things we do, and how our kids have all the support they need.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's, and especially because, we adopted, right? And so they didn't grow up with my mother, right? So it's nice that they're all together, having this time together, to kind of make up for some of that, right? And also for my mom to have some time to get to know them, because, obviously we were talking, but she had come down came down for Halloween and came to trunk or treat and was part of our fairy tale. I was Little Red Riding Hood. You were the
Big Bad Wolf,
and she was the woodsman.
Nice.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So, but it's just nice for them to have this opportunity to all get to know each other.
And it teaches them to be helpful and to a little bit of restraint. It's good to see them interacting with her. I know that someday they're going to look back and be so glad that they've had this experience.
Were there things you're seeing Christmas differently through the eyes of your kids? Are there some things that again, the Sunday morning anticipation and excitement aside, but are there things you're seeing from the Advent candles or from their perspective on Christmas music or that sort of thing?
It's funny, I have to kind of remind myself a lot that, they've never heard this song before, or, they've never done this before. It's really fun to expose them to things that you love and cherish, and you hope that, they'll enjoy it as much as you do.
Well, I mean, back 2 years ago, we made Christmas cookies, and I don't think Layla had ever done that before.
Yeah, just simple things like that.
And she was so excited. And I mean, you could just, I have some pictures, you can just see this excitement, and also, not just to do something fun, but like I made something, right? Yeah. I got to participate. I can be a little bit of controlling about things sometimes. And so like the first year we were decorating the tree was a little tough because and I just saw a video about this of a parent like, no, can we spread out the ornaments, but, but this year I started to decorate and I was like, I really need to bring Layla into this. She really needs to be a part of this. Anthony, I had to distract with a toy, but he and Grandma hung out and talked about Christmas. Nice. We have a Little People nativity scene. Yeah. And so I said, you can play with this, but you have to talk to Grandma about it. And they got into a whole conversation about, who was there and what animal is this? And, so. And
after you and Layla had decorated the dining room, she was so proud. Daddy, come see it. Look what we did. Isn't it so pretty? Yes, it's very pretty. You did a great job.
It's so sweet. And there's all these times in the life for children when it's their first remembering a Christmas. I don't know if you have similar memories of looking back at your first Christmases you remember, or some moment from Christmas that brings you back, and to have that opportunity for our kids, it's really magical and beautiful. And I'm excited for all the things that are happening for our girls as well, because Christmas lights. There's like loud exclamations from the backseat. Look! Every time we see lights anywhere, or a blow up, or that sort of thing. But even like when we come into the church space and we see what color are the paraments? Oh, they're purple. Oh my goodness, they're purple. Like, just excitement from my little girls about something in the church is purple. It's pretty cool. And then that means Dad, pastor, gets to wear a purple stole, which is like next level cool. So, but there's all these things that the children help us to see in a different way. In a powerful way. And so I'm just glad to hear those from y'all as well. So for the two of you, what are you most excited about for this Christmas season?
Now that the kids have lived with us for over 2 years and we know them better, right? Yeah. We can we could surprise them a little bit, right? Because they're they've shared what they'd like for Christmas, but we might think of some things now that we're like, oh, I bet they would love this, or
It's fun to, now that you know what they expect or what they're accustomed to, it's fun to sort of subvert their expectations, or maybe it's something they asked for 4 months ago, or they saw in a store, a long time ago and forgot about, and like, oh yeah, Daddy remembered. That's always fun.
And we have a tradition just throughout the year of movie night on Friday nights, right? We have pizza, we have movie night. And so we're like, well, it has to be Christmas movies now, right? So they have watched Home Alone for the first time last year. And I mean, I have a video of just watching Anthony laughing at all of the antics. And so we're like, well, let's do it again. And I mean, they just love it, right? Yeah. And then we did A Christmas Story this past weekend.
Christmas Story, yeah.
Yeah. And we weren't
all week they've been saying, you'll shoot your eye out, kid. We're a little behind. So I'm looking forward to actually decorating the tree.
I know. We got our tree at the lot, the youth lot. We have to actually decorate it now.
Well, it's wonderful to hear of y'all's connections and things you're finding meaningful in Advent, and how family in all of its shapes and sizes, family by choice or adoption or birth, marriage, in-laws, all that is family. And that's a huge part of our church here, but also I'm delighted to have y'all share some of that here on the podcast. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you.
And there's a lot of things happening, again, in the life of the church. There's all sorts of things for Christmas Eve. There is a service at 3 p.m. specifically geared towards children. There will be some kids acting out parts, which if you like children's costumes, you want to come see these. And it's a long enough service to cover the topic at hand, and short enough for those of us with little kids to make it happen. It's participatory, it's exciting, it's fun. And so I hope you'll come check that out. That's Christmas Eve. That's Sunday, December 24th. At 3 p.m. at the church. And we've also got our traditional 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. services with candlelight, and a 5 p.m. modern service as well. We'll stream both of the 5 o'clock services as well. But look forward to seeing you all there and celebrating this holy and wonderful time, and all these parts of how family makes Christmas Christmas. Well, thanks for watching the podcast and listening here. Glad to have you with us. And thank you again to the Sanders family for sharing your story and your delightful kids and all of the things. Now I need to go home and watch Home Alone again. So, all right, we'll see you in the next episode. Peace, y'all.